sudden tension erupted at Gimhi International Airport when Jungkook spontaneously stepped in and reprimanded a customs officer in a raised voice after Jimin's Dior bag was unilaterally pulled away without permission, creating an awkward silence in the inspection area before their manager eventually intervened to calm the situation, which nearly resulted in a major misunderstanding. Welcome to Jimin Gallery, the home for Park Jimin fans who want to discover all the latest news, interesting facts, and stories behind the world's spotlight on Jimin. The atmosphere at Gimhae International Airport in Busan, South Korea, suddenly felt a little more crowded than usual when a private flight carrying Jimin and Jungkook landed safely after a long journey from Arlington, United States. The presence of the two global BTS stars naturally attracted the attention of fans and members of the media who had been waiting in the arrival area for several hours. The two stepped out through the designated passage wearing casual yet stylish outfits, warmly waving to the fans who welcomed them back home. However, the calm atmosphere in the baggage inspection area suddenly turned tense as they had to handle their personal belongings before being officially allowed to leave the airport secure zone. The issue began when airport security and customs officers conducted a routine inspection of several of Jimin's carry-on bags, which stood out because some contained luxury items from the renowned global brand Dior. Airport officials requested that several small suitcases and a Dior tote bag belonging to Jimin be opened for a secondary inspection in accordance with strict customs procedures. Known for his calm and patient demeanor, Jimin immediately cooperated, smiling politely while attempting to explain the contents of the bags to the officers on duty. He showed no signs of objection whatsoever and was prepared to unzip his luxury bag to help facilitate the ongoing airport inspection process. However, the situation at the inspection counter suddenly became tense when one airport officer appeared overly rigid and seemed to hold onto Jimin's Dior bag for too long without providing a clear or reasonable explanation. The officer even briefly pulled one of Jimin's suitcases toward the secondary inspection area without properly asking permission from its owner, who was standing directly in front of them. Jungkook, who was standing right beside Jimin, immediately reacted to the change in circumstances. His protective instincts toward his friend were triggered when he saw Jimin's belongings being handled rather carelessly. Without hesitation, Jungkook stepped forward, partially shielding Jimin with his body, and firmly confronted the airport officer in a noticeably raised voice. "Why are his belongings being held like that? We've been cooperative this whole time. Please explain what the problem is properly first," Jungkook said, his body language clearly showing his deep dissatisfaction with what he perceived as the officer's unilateral actions. The area around the baggage inspection counter immediately fell into complete silence, prompting the accompanying staff and manager to quickly approach and defuse the tension that had begun to spread. The airport officer appeared surprised by the spontaneous reaction from the singer of Seven, especially given Jungkook's status as one of South Korea's most prominent national icons. Nevertheless, the officer attempted to maintain professionalism by asking Jungkook to remain calm and not escalate what appeared to be a minor issue at the inspection counter. A brief argument took place for several seconds, with Jungkook insisting on an explanation for why the bag and suitcase were being held while Jimin tried to gently pull on Jungkook's jacket sleeve to prevent him from becoming even more emotional. Jimin repeatedly whispered softly to Jungkook, reminding him that they were in a public place and that the situation could easily be misinterpreted by those around them. Their quick-thinking travel manager immediately took control of the situation by stepping between Jungkook and the airport officer before presenting the necessary official travel documents and baggage manifest. The manager explained to the officer that all of the luxury items had already gone through the proper international tax declaration process and that there were no illegal items inside the luggage. After reviewing the documents provided by the manager, the airport officer's expression gradually softened as they realized that a relatively minor administrative misunderstanding had occurred. Apparently, the airport scanning system had detected a particular metallic reflection from an accessory on Jimin's Dior bag that happened to resemble an item requiring additional random manual inspection. The officer eventually realized that their earlier actions had been too hasty and immediately apologized directly to both Jimin and Jungkook for the inconvenience that had occurred in the arrival area. The officer acknowledged that random inspection procedures could sometimes lead to minor misunderstandings, particularly when dealing with branded items featuring intricate metal accents. Jimin, known for his gentle nature, immediately nodded with a friendly smile and graciously accepted the apology, saying that there was no major issue that needed to be prolonged. He even gently patted Jungkook's shoulder to calm his frustration, which was still clearly visible on the youngest member's face as he continued to look slightly displeased. Seeing his friend remain calm, Jungkook gradually softened as well, although his jaw remained tense because he disliked seeing the belongings of someone close to him being treated carelessly. He then took a deep breath, adjusted his jacket, and offered a brief apology to the airport officer for raising his voice in a public place. The tense atmosphere that had briefly enveloped a corner of the arrivals area at Gimhae Airport finally dissipated in an instant, replaced by awkward smiles from the staff who felt nervous being face-to-face with the two major stars. Jimin's Dior suitcase and bag were eventually returned in full without any further issues, and inspection clearance stickers were immediately placed on the items. The manager and airport security staff then helped carry all of their luggage to the waiting vehicle, which had been neatly parked in the VIP pickup area outside the terminal building. Jimin walked side by side with Jungkook, quietly laughing as they talked about the minor incident they had just experienced, despite still feeling tired after their long flight from the Americas. As they stepped outside the airport building, the flashes of cameras from journalists and the enthusiastic cheers of hundreds of devoted fans waiting for them once again greeted their return to their homeland. Both Jimin and Jungkook, despite having just experienced a brief moment of tension with the airport staff, continued to show their brightest smiles and wave toward the crowd filling the area outside. The small incident involving the luxury suitcase and bag did nothing to diminish their happiness at finally setting foot in the city of Busan again, after spending so much time abroad. Their journey by car to their respective homes continued smoothly, leaving behind a lighthearted airport story that had now become nothing more than a sweet little chapter in their long journey. The brief incident quickly spread among fans, not as bad news, but rather as a clear example of how the loyalty and care among the BTS members remained strong behind the scenes. Fans even found it endearing to see how Jungkook, the youngest member, was so quick to step up and defend his older brother's belongings when they encountered an unpleasant situation at the airport. Both the agency and Gimhi Airport authorities chose not to issue any excessive official statements, considering that the incident was merely a minor procedural misunderstanding that had been resolved properly on the spot. Jimin and Jungkook's return to Busan was ultimately remembered as a heartwarming moment when the stars returned to their beloved hometown. The vehicle carrying Jimin and Jungkook slowly left the Gimhae International Airport area, making its way through the streets of Busan, which looked clean and orderly that afternoon. Inside the car, the atmosphere was peaceful after the brief tension that had occurred in the airport baggage inspection area moments earlier. Jimin turned toward Jungkook, who was sitting beside him, then chuckled softly and nudged the Magne's shoulder to lighten the mood, which still carried a faint trace of irritation. "You know, why did you have to get so worked up right away? The officer was only doing their routine job." "Jungkook, Jimin said with a warm smile. Jungkook let out a short sigh before responding with a faint smile, folding his arms across his chest in his characteristically adorable manner. "I just don't like seeing them handle your things carelessly, Jimin Hyung. Especially when they pulled your favorite Dior bag like that without clearly asking for permission," Jungkook replied casually, defending himself. The manager, sitting in the front seat, also chuckled as he listened to their little argument from the back. He was grateful that such a trivial matter had not turned into major news that could have caused problems. He praised Jungkook for being quick to react while also reminding them that, in the future, they should remain patient when dealing with strict inspection procedures wherever they might be. As evening approached, the luxury vehicle finally entered the residential area where their families lived, welcoming the two global stars back with the warmth of the hometown they had always missed. The small airport incident had truly passed, leaving behind a simple story about the close friendship between the two of them in their beloved hometown. What do you think about the small incident involving Jungkook and the airport staff in Busan? Sudden tension erupted at Gimhi International Airport when Jungkook spontaneously stepped in and reprimanded a customs officer in a raised voice after Jimin's Dior bag was unilaterally pulled away without permission, creating an awkward silence in the inspection area before their manager eventually intervened to calm the situation, which nearly resulted in a major misunderstanding. Welcome to Jimin Gallery, the home for Park Jimin fans who want to discover all the latest news, interesting facts, and stories behind the world's spotlight on Jimin. The atmosphere at Gimhi International Airport in Busan, South Korea, suddenly felt a little more crowded than usual when a private flight carrying Jimin and Jungkook landed safely after a long journey from Arlington, United States. The presence of the two global BTS stars naturally attracted the attention of fans and members of the media who had been waiting in the arrival area for several hours. The two stepped out through the designated passage wearing casual yet stylish outfits, warmly waving to the fans who welcomed them back home. However, the calm atmosphere in the baggage inspection area suddenly turned tense as they had to handle their personal belongings before being officially allowed to leave the airport secure zone. The issue began when airport security and